I think in this match particularly, with the Kings of Winter against Night's Watch, the key piece to watch for is Fish Whiskers.
Of course.
That's the one that's going to make or break this game if he's able to stick on the board, especially since we already see the Seastone chair there.
Definitely, and that will be able to give him that sort of control that he will have to need against a deck like Tomas's deck here. So please tell us a little bit about Tomas's deck. We were talking earlier here, and you've actually met the deck earlier tonight.
Yeah, I played it in round 3. It's quite attachment reliant deck. Like it's running 32 characters and 10 attachments and the locations then. So it's running Craven, which is something that a lot of people feared going into this tournament, and then Milk of the Puppy, which is a lot of control for this kind of deck, because Greyjoy Winter, I was running a shamefully inferior version of Petter's deck today. So it can really shut you down, because their main approach there is trying to we do not sow away the attachments, which can get quite difficult once you actually have the Craven and the Milk in place.
Mm-hmm. So we saw Petter marshalling only a few characters really, sticking to big characters, which will leave him with quite a considerable size of hand that will be discarded most of.
For him, he's going to have 4 reserve coming out of it. It's okay.
It's all right.
In reality, with Tomas having the 6 reserve there, like it limits him, and you see they're calculating it right now, just to work it out with the Iron Throne. I think Balon can just accelerate the game so much. He's a key piece, because with any winter deck, like, they're going to be heading towards a winter festival.
Definitely.
And having the big power coming into it straight away is going to make the world of difference. So even if Balon gets milked or gets cravened, if he gets
he's still
a bit of a burst.
Yeah, he's still a 5.
Oh, excitement.
Right.
Is that Watchers on the Walls in Tomas's hand?
In Tomas's hand, we've got
Ari, okay, which is to be expected.
Reducer, and
I'm pretty sure that's a Watchers on the Walls.
Could be.
He's been absolutely lethal with that. I remember seeing in Paris, where Tomas was also top Night's Watch, seeing him kill across 2 consecutive challenges. Tywin,
yep.
That's the one.
That's the one, yes.
That is something to watch for people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So this is a highly original deck from Tomas that he's been honing on all throughout the season, it would seem.
Yeah, so the deck goes through quite a lot of testing. Like, he's a very active Octagon player, because his own meta is not as large as some of the ones around. So he's only got about 4 players locally, but it's something that he refines continuously. One fact people mightn't know is that he hasn't actually played Night's Watch exclusively all the way through the season. He was the top Tyrell at Batalla por el Muro on the first stop on the road to Stalik.
Really?
So really a champion of the oppressed factions, as it were.
As it were. Now, Petter is playing out of Gothenburg here in Sweden, so he has a sort of a meta together with Gothenburg and Varberg, comprised of a Western meta in Sweden here. Also, obviously, us Swedes, we travel to each other's, so we have visitors coming up to Stockholm from these places, and also us coming down here a lot. Now,
there goes the reserve. That's the safety blanket gone.
Mm-hmm. So he's trying to use his cards to most effect here before the and he steals the Watchers. Well, that's is it a one-off in Tomas's deck, or does he have played several?
I've seen him play 2 in Paris. I'm not sure if it is in this incarnation of the deck, but I think it's something that works a lot better as a surprise, because it's something you get to see continuously in Intrigue Claim or something. It's something you start preparing around, and here's a huge deal. I think it was a bit of a risk actually using the We Do Not Sow this early, because their deck will be throwing Cravens out, it will be throwing out Milks, so using it right now in the Iron Throne,
it might cost him dearly later.
I think it's, as you were saying, like, it's running into the reserve issues, and
he wants to actually use the cards before he has discards them. Now, pulling the Watchers, do you think that will affect the way Petter plays now? Will he be more careful knowing that this card is in the deck?
I think for the moment he's likely to disregard it. Like, I don't think anybody would expect it to be a huge presence, although these guys haven't played as much against each other. because with Tomas, like a lot of people would know him from the road, like he's the second most active player on the road to Stalag, and in that respect, having somebody who's playing in their first road to Stalag event of the year, like it's going to make a bit of a difference. But I think for now, there's no need for him to anticipate many watchers, and with the Iron Mines there as a safety blanket, he can continue quite calmly.
Yeah. Also, we saw Tomas pull for intrigue claim, pull Varys out of Peter's deck, and Varys in a Greyjoy deck, it might be a bit of a surprise, but still.
I think it's a tremendous support to the Kings of Winter. Once you've cut down the reserve, once you've drained them that much, having Varys then come down as a finishing blow can be enormous. One thing I'm curious about is how he actually looks to afford Varys, because sometimes income can run really tight.
Greyjoy is certainly often stretched for income, and a neutral card like Varys costing 6, that can be quite a stretch to if you can't set it up. It can be hard.
And that's where Night's Watch historically have been very tied to fealty. I haven't experimented very much, like just getting the income exactly right, even though they often don't play their 7 drops and just stick with a gold cost of 6 or less.
Yeah.
We survived the first turn, and Tomas is really racing ahead on the power, like with Greyjoy coming in.
41 here.
Yeah, so that's something that can accelerate very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Once he's got his Winter Festival down, once he's going to drop the Benjen Wildfire.
Yeah.
And that's always a surprise to me, like seeing Night's Watch decks without the Benjen Wildfire combo, because in terms of finishing the deck, there's so few things that efficient.
Exactly, that is just unstoppable. In case you haven't milked him already, it's going to pull in those 2 resources.
And that's something that we're going to see kind of changing moving forward. Not only with the Benjen Wildfire combo, but even with the coming of, and I know people are going to complain to us on the internet mentioning Valar, but once you're looking at that post-taxation action window, where you get the Golden Tooth Mines or the Old Forest Hunter being able to get that little gold, suddenly you're looking at effects like that being running into treachery. You're going to be looking at Iron Mines, you're going to be looking at Benjen himself becoming a little bit more conditional. But the cool thing we saw there from the plots from Tomas is actually the 2 counting coppers, which creates an incredible flow from his deck. It's just a continuous progression of characters.
But now he hasn't seen the white tree yet. Do you think this is going to hamper his play for the moment?
This deck doesn't actually play the white tree.
Oh, he doesn't even play the white tree?
No, it's something that he did in testing, but having just 3 of them, a lot of the time you're building orders, there's so many better targets, because if you don't have it in setup, the difference it makes is really enormous. From there on down, yes, it very quickly recovers it within a couple of turns, but that initial 3 gold hit...
It is a tempo.
And it's something where how much you slow your opponent down if they already have their setup mostly in place. It's not that relevant, because now that you have Craven, I think building orders really is going to be going for the wall, it's going to be going for Craven, and the white tree during the course of play is going to be quite low on the list.
For sure.
And it's cool seeing some of the different cards here from the road itself. We're seeing Tomas there with actually 2 Night's Watch house cards. You have the custom one that was done for himself and the foil Night's Watch house card. And that baffled me quite a bit, but it's a Hungarian tournament. They did special foiled versions of the house cards, which is quite cool.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
We also see the plot formatted fealty, which is quite different, but really creates kind of a more picturesque version of the card.
Definitely. Seeing these old art versions from all these tournaments out there, it gives a bit of a flavour to the show, to the scenery on the table when we're watching it on a screen like this. So we'll try to keep you updated on what you're actually seeing, because obviously it could be tricky for players recognizing these cards.
Yeah, some of the cards can be a bit confusing. Like, and generally on the road to Stalag, the rule is all the road to Stalag alt arts are legal, but there's many tournaments around Europe that create their own, and some of them are very impressive. Like some of the ones I've seen from the Prague regionals, from the Warsaw tournaments, there's absolutely fantastic cards floating around, and the general approach is let people play what they want. If your opponent's confused with something, just have the cards for reference.
Exactly. And explain it. For sure. And we'll try to keep all the viewers up to date on what we're actually seeing here. So Tomas decides to go first. Petr decides that Tomas is going first, and he draws into a reducer and a Craven.
But he saw potentially he might be a bit scared of the massive power gain that was gained last turn from him swinging in second. So trying to force that situation, but that allowed Tomas then to draw up, to fill up his hand and try and protect against heads on spikes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that was necessarily the right play there. I don't remember which 4 cards he had, because I think he already had the King's Road and
the King's Road and the Rose Road
in hand.
They were already in hand.
Because from there he's got 32 characters, so on average slightly more than half.
He might have actually made his odds worse.
So it's something to keep an eye out for, because it's something you see quite a lot with the heads on spikes timing window. There's a fantastic play I saw in the melee finals in Dockside Brothel days, where a player on 13 flipped up heads on spikes, and the rest of the table had to figure out a way to get around it.
Yeah.
So they found one player who had the long winter and used that to discard the power to not have him win from the heads on spikes hitting.
Yeah. So there certainly are a lot of shenanigans to be made out of these action windows and the resolution order of things here, and keeping aware of these are hugely important to be able to scoop out these wins. The marginals are really slim, especially in melee, where often your deck is toned to do those really big turns and come from a low number, so you have to be really careful with all the players around the table.
But there we just saw the Craven come down, and that's kind of really where it's going to turn.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what way Petter is seeing, like his own We Do Not Throw last turn.
Yeah, Petter is sitting on a hand with nothing really huge in it. He's got some nightmares there that could possibly turn. I'm not sure. There's no real target for it.
Yeah, the captain's daughter is quite unfortunately timed there.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be no real targets for it in Night's Watch much of the time.
No, and having the Craven on the Theon is certainly going to hamper him severely. And Balin is milked, so he's not.
They might not be unopposed for a while.
Yeah, and there goes.
That's the only relevant card.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so this is. Martin is probably just looking to get out of this round and possibly draw some new cards.
The good news here, though, is without the wall in place, you don't have the clock.
Exactly. It's not. He's still not letting him pull ahead too much, even though he's behind. Like you said, the clock isn't on yet, and he can stall things out doing these kinds of smaller. Challenges, just kneeling things down and
it's hard for him to accelerate from here because he's only got the one intrigue icon and it's not a very impressive one. And we saw in Tomas's hand that he's got the new ambush character who's going to be flying out there, and it's an enormous board presence. In this situation with this many characters on the board, I think Tomas's big concern really is watching out for overstretching. So if we see something like a wildfire come down, potentially he could be exposing himself with a lot of characters, but he's got the draw to support it. He's got another Counting Copper is still waiting in his plot deck, so he's in a good place.
And he's got a bird on the table, which will help him when he needs it.
So with this much draw flying in, how far away do you reckon we are from an actual mill deck being viable?
Yeah, that's what people are talking about now, whether or not you could actually get it. And it's not there yet, I don't think. But we don't need many more cards doing mill. Especially, like, if you would be able to get the synergies between Night's Watch and Greyjoy, you might have that mill deck.
But the funny thing there is, I think at the moment, it really needs to be an assisted win of sorts. Like, you need a deck like Tomas's that actually flies through its own cards to be able to push it the rest of the distance.
No, it can't be your number one priority sort of win condition.
But we'll see what happens with the new Tywin, like, as you have more pillage. Now, first snow. Who's that going to hit? That could be very devastating.
Indeed. It will only leave him with Maester Aemond and the ranging party. So yeah, but on the other hand, Petter is only keeping a Craven Theon, a milked Balin and a daughter.
The captain's daughter will make a
Captain's
difference there, because
It will,
she
certainly.
can shut down somebody relevant coming down on the turn.
Exactly.
And here we see again like the really fine play with the old Forest Hunt.
Yes, yes, sorry.
Grabbing
And,
that extra gold.
For any aspiring Night's Watch players, this is